Have you ever wondered why some women radiate a force that is not loud, not even visible in obvious gestures, but felt like a magnetic current that bends the space around them? It is not beauty alone, nor charm, nor even confidence as the world casually defines it. It is something deeper, more primal, more refined, the erotic intelligence of a woman who knows herself. She does not flaunt it because it is not performance. She does not beg for attention because attention finds her. This is not the coy seduction of the mask, but the unshakable allure of the soul that has met its own depths. Carl Jung often wrote of the anima and the shadow, of the veils a woman must pass through in order to step into her true form. Erotic intelligence, in this sense, is not limited to sexuality. It is the total presence of life force embodied. It is eros, the pulse of creation, the fire of becoming. When a woman integrates her wounds, reconciles her shadow, and no longer fears the truth of her desires, her very being becomes charged with an energy that others cannot resist. Men feel it not as lust alone, but as gravity. The unspoken awareness that here is someone who has touched the hidden layers of existence and returned whole. The world often tries to break this intelligence early. Little girls are taught to be pleasing, to soften their voices, to apologize for occupying space. Later, they are told that desirability is the ultimate currency, measured in fleeting glances and external approval. But erotic intelligence is born when a woman refuses to reduce herself to an image. She begins the painful journey inward, confronting the demons she inherited, the fear of abandonment, the craving for validation, the shame of her body, the guilt of her desire. She descends into her own underworld, and when she rises, she is no longer fragmented. She is one. She is dangerous. She is free. You know this kind of woman. You feel her when she walks into a room, not because she demands, but because she carries. She holds within her a quiet sovereignty, the authority that comes not from domination, but from integration. She does not compete with other women because she has already married her inner opposites. She does not seek to devour a man's identity, for she has forged her own. And in her presence, the shallow games of seduction crumble, because you realize you are in the company of truth. Men, when faced with such a woman, often falter. Some are intoxicated, compelled to chase her only to find themselves confronted with their own unhealed wounds. Others recoil, intimidated by the mirror she unconsciously holds up to them. For erotic intelligence is not just attraction, it is revelation. It exposes what is weak, what is fearful, what is dependent. A man who has not yet faced his own shadow will mistake her power for a threat, when in fact it is an invitation to rise, to grow, to meet her as an equal in soul rather than an owner in ego. But for you, listening now, the question is sharper. Do you recognize this within yourself? Have you silenced parts of your being in order to be loved? Have you tamed your fire so that others would feel safe near you? Have you mistaken pleasing for intimacy, obedience for belonging? If so, then you have betrayed your erotic intelligence. And yet, it waits beneath the surface, patient, untamed, ready to return the moment you choose to meet yourself honestly. The moment you stop performing and start embodying. Erotic intelligence does not mean indulgence without boundaries, nor manipulation disguised as a lure. It is not weaponized sexuality. It is the harmony of desire and dignity, passion and restraint, vulnerability and power. It is the knowing smile of a woman who has walked through heartbreak and did not wither. It is the gaze of someone who has faced rejection and still refuses to abandon herself. It is the way she touches life, not desperately, not greedily, but fully, with reverence. And in that touch, she awakens others to their own sleeping aliveness. When Jung spoke of individuation, he described the process of becoming whole by integrating all the fragments of the self. Erotic intelligence is one of the highest fruits of this work. It is the integration of the wild with the wise, the child with the mother, the shadow with the light. It is a spiritual maturity that carries with it the sensual immediacy of being human. To know oneself in this way is to become a vessel of both fire and calm, storm and silence. And the world, starving for authenticity, cannot help but turn its head. You might think this intelligence is rare, but it is not. It is only suppressed. It is asleep in countless women, numbed by conformity, buried under guilt, waiting for the key that unlocks it. That key is truth, the courage to stop lying to yourself, to stop playing the roles handed to you, to stop fearing your own depth. And when you take it, when you unlock that door, you will discover that eros is not something you chase, it is something you embody. You become the flame that no longer begs for moths. You become the center around which the false dissolves. You become the woman who knows. There is something terrifying and liberating about a woman who no longer fears her own depths. Once she has walked through the flames of rejection, betrayal, loneliness, and discovered that she did not disintegrate but rather became sharper, clearer, more whole. Her energy changes. The erotic intelligence that emerges from this crucible is not the learned script of seduction, but the primal resonance of someone who has fused her wounds into wisdom. Her body no longer carries shame as its inheritance. Her voice no longer trembles with the need for acceptance. Her eyes no longer bargain for affection. Instead, she becomes a mirror in which others are forced to confront who they are in the presence of someone unapologetically alive. Jung understood that the unconscious will always demand expression. What you repress does not disappear. It festers, it distorts, it leaks into relationships and choices. For a woman who has repressed her erotic nature, the cost is high. She finds herself drawn to men who consume rather than cherish, because she unconsciously projects her disowned power onto them. She finds herself restless, unable to feel satisfied, because the hunger is not for another's body but for her own soul. She withers in environments where she must silence her instinct, because eros is not just sexual, it is creative, it is artistic, it is the fuel of her vitality. Deny it, and she becomes brittle. Embrace it, and she becomes a force of nature. For men, such a woman is both a blessing and a challenge. She awakens him to the possibility that intimacy is not possession, that connection is not conquest, that love is not transaction. To stand before her is to be called into his own individuation, to confront the anima within, to reconcile his own shadow. The weak man will try to dominate her, to shrink her, to shame her into compliance. The immature man will idolize her, placing her on a pedestal to worship from a distance, afraid to truly meet her. But the integrated man, he does not flee and he does not worship. He stands. He meets her eye to eye, soul to soul. And in that meeting, eros does not burn one out. It refines both into gold. You, listening now, must ask, have you given your fire away? Have you handed over the key to your worth to those who did not know how to hold it? Have you allowed your erotic nature to be defined by the gaze of others rather than by the truth of your own body and spirit? If you have, then you already know the emptiness that follows, because no amount of external attention can replace the internal recognition of self. The most intoxicating approval fades quickly if it does not align with your own knowing. The only permanence comes when you choose yourself first, when your erotic power is not for sale, but for expression. The Stoics, centuries before Jung, taught the same principle in a different language. Seneca wrote that freedom is not granted by fortune, but by the refusal to be enslaved by desire. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that everything external is unstable, fleeting, never truly his. Erotic intelligence is born from that same realization, that your worth cannot hang on another's desire, that your power cannot be contingent on another's choice. When you stand anchored in yourself, you do not beg for love. You allow love to find you, because your energy is no longer diluted by fear. You do not seduce to fill a void. You invite because you are already whole. Imagine the presence of such a woman. She enters a space without performing for eyes, yet eyes find her. She does not rush to prove herself, yet her silence unsettles those addicted to superficial games. She does not demand devotion, yet those who sense her depth cannot help but return. She is not addicted to being wanted because she has already chosen herself. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. And in her alignment, she becomes luminous. Not always the brightest light, but the most steady flame. Her erotic intelligence is not reckless abandon. It is discipline married to desire. It is the ability to say no with the same intensity as she says yes, to guard her energy as fiercely as she gives it. This discernment is what separates her from the naive, who confuse availability with power. The woman who knows herself does not spill her essence into every hand outstretched. She chooses, she filters, she protects. And because she protects, her presence remains rare and therefore sacred. Those who encounter her understand, whether consciously or not, that they are in the presence of something uncommon, a woman who belongs entirely to herself. This is the paradox that makes her irresistible. She does not need you, yet she may want you. She does not collapse into you, yet she may open to you. She does not abandon herself to keep you, and therefore you can trust her, because she will not betray you out of fear. Men sense this and are both terrified and magnetized. Women sense this and are both threatened and inspired. But underneath all the reactions lies the truth. She is free. And freedom, when embodied, is the highest form of erotic power. When a woman finally steps into this freedom, she discovers that her energy reshapes the very fabric of her relationships. She no longer plays the game of endless compromise, shrinking so others can expand, apologizing for her existence in order to be tolerated. Instead, she moves with the dignity of one who has tasted solitude and found it nourishing. She does not cling to a man for identity, nor to society for permission. She has burned those chains in the furnace of her own becoming. What remains is a woman who knows herself, and therefore knows what she will not accept. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow. For the feminine, it is often the confrontation with the cultural shadow, the centuries of conditioning that taught women to equate worth with obedience, purity with silence, desire with shame. The erotic intelligence of a self-knowing woman is born when she retrieves from the shadows all that was once demonized within her: her hunger, her fury, her sensuality, her voice. Each piece returns like a shard of glass, cutting through the lies she was fed. At first, the reassembly is painful because these pieces do not fit neatly into the image society has prepared for her. But as she fits them together, she realizes she is not meant to be neat. She is meant to be whole. To encounter her is to encounter a paradox. She is tender, but not fragile. She is sensual, but not objectified. She is independent, but not hardened. Her erotic intelligence weaves together contradictions without apology, because she has embraced that she herself is a union of contradictions. She is fire and water, earth and air, chaos and structure. She embodies what Jung called the coincidentia oppositorum, the marriage of opposites within a single soul. And this alchemy makes her radiant in ways that no external ornament can counterfeit. For you listening, the question pierces deeper now. How much of your shadow do you still exile? Do you still apologize for your anger, even when it is holy? Do you still dress your body not for yourself, but for the imagined judgment of eyes that have never truly seen you? Do you still censor your longing because you fear being labeled too much, too wild, too needy? If so, you are living as half of yourself, and half of yourself cannot command the fullness of life. Erotic intelligence demands integration, not fragmentation. It asks you to bring back the voices you silenced, to forgive the versions of you that once settled, to reclaim the instincts you buried under guilt. The Stoics taught that the greatest victory is mastery over the self. But mastery does not mean suppression. It means alignment. Epictetus declared that no man is free who is not master of himself. Apply this to the feminine, and it becomes clear. No woman is free until she is master of her eros, until she holds her desire in her own hands rather than handing it out as ransom for love. The woman who knows herself is not enslaved by longing. She does not collapse under the weight of abandonment. She does not crumble when ignored. Why? Because her erotic energy is not a tool of survival. It is the natural overflow of her aliveness. Whether met by another or not, it still burns. It still creates. It still nourishes her. This is why she no longer competes for attention. She has transcended the economy of scarcity, where women are pitted against each other to be chosen. She knows that eros is not a resource to be won or lost. It is infinite because it flows from within her. When she encounters another woman, she does not see a rival but a mirror. She recognizes that the world needs more embodied women, not fewer, and so she inspires rather than diminishes, encourages rather than sabotages. This generosity is not born from weakness but from abundance. She gives because she cannot be emptied. Men who stand in her presence often find themselves at a crossroads. They can either rise to meet her with their own integrated masculinity, or they can retreat into the familiar comfort of control. The latter will always fail, because the woman who knows herself cannot be coerced. Her erotic intelligence cannot be caged. Attempts to dominate her only reveal the man's fear. Attempts to diminish her only strengthen her resolve. She becomes, in essence, untouchable, not because she avoids intimacy, but because she is immune to manipulation. She sees through the masks, the games, the insecurities dressed as confidence, and she refuses to give her energy where truth is absent. You may wonder, is such a woman lonely? The answer is paradoxical. She is alone often, but never lonely, because she has learned that solitude is not emptiness, but sanctuary. In her solitude, she converses with her soul. In her stillness, she gathers power. In her silence, she hears the voice of what is eternal. This intimacy with herself is the foundation of her erotic intelligence. It is why, when she finally chooses to connect, her presence is overwhelming. She offers not scraps of attention, but the fullness of her being. And only those with the courage to hold it will remain. There comes a point when a woman who knows herself realizes that her very presence is a catalyst. She does not merely enter relationships, she transforms them. Those who cross her path are forced to confront themselves because her energy refuses to collude with illusion. She does not flatter weakness, nor indulge falsehood, nor participate in cycles of dysfunction. She holds a mirror up to those around her, and that mirror is merciless in its honesty. Yet it is also healing, because in her erotic intelligence there is no cruelty, only clarity. She does not seek to wound, but to awaken. Jung believed that intimacy inevitably stirs the unconscious. Every relationship is a dialogue between shadows as much as between personalities. When a man meets a woman who has faced her depths, his unconscious is unsettled because he senses, perhaps for the first time, that there will be no escape routes here. He cannot hide behind charm, nor deflect with dominance, nor manipulate with absence. She will see him, not just the persona he has, polished, but the wound he has buried, the boy he has abandoned, the fears he has disguised. And while part of him may crave this exposure, another part will resist with all its strength. This is why some men are drawn to her with desperate intensity, only to sabotage the connection once the mirror becomes unbearable. Her erotic intelligence activates not only desire, but truth, and truth is often the hardest seduction of all. For her, this is no longer a tragedy. Once, perhaps, she might have wept over his retreat, doubted herself, begged for answers. But now she understands. She is not responsible for the battles another refuses to fight. She knows that she is not abandoned. He has abandoned himself. She does not collapse into despair because his withdrawal is not evidence of her inadequacy, but of his unreadiness. This clarity shields her from the poison of self-blame, the endless cycle of trying to be enough. She has already decided she is enough. And this decision, irrevocable and unshakable, is what fuels the quiet fire of her erotic intelligence. You, listening, may feel the weight of this realization pressing against your own life. How often have you carried the shame of someone else's fear? How many times have you mistaken rejection for evidence that you were unworthy, when in truth it was simply evidence that they were unprepared? How much of your energy has been wasted on trying to persuade someone to see you, when the real question was, do you see yourself? This is where the power returns. Because the moment you stop chasing the external reflection and begin embodying your internal reality, you step into the field of self-possession. And in that field, you are untouchable. The Stoics warned against confusing what is within your control with what is not. Marcus Aurelius urged himself each morning to expect betrayal, envy, ingratitude, but to remain unshaken because his soul was his own to command. The woman who knows herself lives this philosophy in her body. She no longer squanders her energy on what she cannot control: the approval of others, the constancy of love, the fleeting tides of attention. Instead, she roots herself in what is hers: her perception, her discipline, her desire, her dignity. She understands that no one can rob her of her essence unless she consents, and she no longer consents. This is why her presence feels erotic even in silence. It is not about touch, nor words, nor gestures. It is about the vibration of a human being, who is deeply at home in herself. This home is unshakable because it has been built through fire. The woman who knows herself has sat in the ashes of heartbreak and rebuilt. She has walked through the deserts of loneliness and found water within. She has confronted the monsters of shame and realized they were only shadows cast by her own light. She has done what few dare to do. She has become intimate with her own soul. And intimacy with oneself is the foundation of every other intimacy worth having. For others, this is both intoxicating and intimidating. They want to taste her freedom, but not everyone is willing to pay the price she paid to earn it. They want the sweetness of her energy, without enduring the crucible of their own shadow. But she will not rescue them from themselves. She may offer a glimpse, a spark, a doorway, but the walk must be theirs. And so many drift away, unable to match her depth. Yet she does not mourn them as she once might have, because she understands a sacred law. That which cannot meet you at your frequency will fall away. To cling to it is to betray yourself. To release it is to honor your truth. This, ultimately, is the essence of her erotic intelligence. It is not manipulation, nor conquest, nor performance. It is self-ownership so profound that it radiates into every interaction. It is the refusal to shrink for fear and the refusal to expand for applause. It is the balance of being open without being emptied, generous without being used, passionate without being consumed. And because she has become this balance, she becomes unforgettable. Even those who lose her presence never truly escape it. She remains in their memory, not as a fantasy, but as a standard, as the reminder of what it means to encounter a woman who is whole. There is a stillness that surrounds a woman who knows herself, a silence that is not emptiness but density, like the gravity of a star. People cannot explain why they remember her, why her absence lingers like perfume, why her presence unsettles even when she says nothing at all. It is because she carries what few dare to carry, the integration of eros and soul. Her erotic intelligence does not demand the room. It transforms it. She can sit in the corner, unnoticed by the superficial eye, yet those with even a fragment of sensitivity will feel her like a tremor in the air. This is the paradox of her allure. She no longer seeks to be seen, yet she cannot be unseen. Jung would have recognized her as an archetype, the eternal feminine fully awakened, not the maiden waiting for salvation, nor the temptress bound by projection, but the sovereign who has walked into her shadow and emerged indivisible. She is not without scars. In fact, her erotic power is forged precisely through them. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every dismissal became part of the crucible that refined her. She learned that wounds can either poison or illuminate. She chose illumination. And now, what once weakened her has become the source of her radiance. When she touches with awareness. When she speaks with resonance. When she gives without collapse. Her intimacy is not frantic, not addicted to permanence, because she understands that love is not possession, it is participation. A man does not have her, he experiences her. And to experience her is to encounter life itself in concentrated form. This is why those who lose her are haunted. It is not because she ensnared them, it is because she revealed them. Her presence awakened in them a taste of their own dormant wholeness, and once tasted, the absence of it feels unbearable. For her, however, there is no desperation. She does not clutch at the past, nor bow to the future. She moves in the eternal present, knowing that nothing real can be taken, and nothing lost was ever truly hers. This is where the Stoic and the Jungian meet, in the acceptance of impermanence and the courage to embody truth despite it. Epictetus would say that freedom lies in detachment from what is not ours. Jung would say that freedom lies in the union of the unconscious with the conscious. The woman who knows herself embodies both. She is detached not because she is cold, but because she has learned to hold without clinging, to give without erasing, to love without enslaving. This is the highest form of eros, love rooted in liberty. You must ask yourself, do you dare to reach this place? Do you dare to peel away the layers of compliance, the costumes of performance, the fragile scaffolding of external validation? Do you dare to stand naked, not in body, but in essence, and let the world see who you are when nothing is left to hide? Most shrink from this unveiling, because it means risking rejection. But what is the greater tragedy? To be rejected for your truth, or to be accepted for your mask? The woman who knows herself has chosen the first, and in doing so, she has gained everything. Because no rejection can dismantle what is already whole. No abandonment can unseat what is already rooted. No betrayal can unmake what has already embraced its shadow. She becomes not a seeker of love, but a chooser of it. She does not chase, she discerns. She does not beg, she decides. She knows that her erotic energy is a sacred currency, and she spends it only where truth circulates. She is not impressed by wealth without wisdom, power without integrity, beauty without depth. These things, though glittering, are cheap to her. What she values is alignment, presence, authenticity. And when she finds it, she gives herself not halfway, not cautiously but fully, because she knows that withholding is a symptom of fear, and she has already laid fear to rest. Men who meet such a woman are forever altered. Some rise to meet her, integrating their anima, confronting their shadow, becoming more whole in the process. Others retreat, unprepared for the depth she summons. But none forget her, for she is not just a woman. They experience her as an initiation into truth, into depth, into the possibility of a love that is not built on transaction, but on transformation. She does not offer comfort in the conventional sense. She offers a fire that burns illusions away. And in a world addicted to illusion, this makes her rare beyond measure. Her erotic intelligence finally is not about seduction at all. It is about liberation. To stand in her presence is to remember that freedom is possible. Freedom from roles, from masks, from the endless hunger of seeking worth in another's gaze. Freedom to be, unapologetically, fully, dangerously alive. She does not belong to anyone because she belongs to herself. And in belonging to herself, she paradoxically becomes capable of belonging truly, deeply, without fear, to another, if she chooses. The culmination of her journey is peace. Not the fragile peace of avoidance, but the steady peace of embodiment. She has faced the storm within and come to rest in her own center. She has met the shadow and walked hand in hand with it. She has released the need to prove, to chase, to cling. She simply is. And in her being, there is power. In her silence, there is speech. In her gaze, there is eternity. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.